is the presenter, Kia Ellis. Kia is a Senior Specialized Solutions Group Curriculum Specialist from McGraw-Hill Education. And Ms. Ellis has worked with schools and administrators across the country to manage implementations and support teachers as they improve student achievement. Kia has presented at many regional and national conferences, including the Association for Direct Instruction, NIFTY, NCTM, and IRA. Ms. Ellis was an elementary and middle school teacher where she implemented many direct instruction programs. And Kia has also completed her undergraduate studies in elementary education from the University of Florida and a master's degree in education with an emphasis on reading and a master's degree in educational leadership. So I'll go ahead and turn over the presentation to Kia. Welcome, Kia.
Thank you, Lindsay, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Closing Out the Year, Part 2. As Lindsay said, this is the second part of the series, and if you missed the first part, don't worry, we have a recording as we are recording this session as well. We've been focusing on throughout the year ways to improve reading mastery signature edition implementations, and the last two ones have focused on closing out the year successfully. In Part 1, we focused on the first step, which was identifying current placement of students and determining program placement for the next school year. We're going to go ahead and work on the last three steps for closing out the year, which will be conducting testing on select students, complete projection sheets, and also determine materials needed for next year. While we work through the last three steps of closing out a successful year, we'll talk about what students are most appropriate to test for in the end of the school year and how to fill out those projection sheets to help with grouping for the next school year as well as to help for ordering materials for next year. We'll give you some suggestions on what to think about when you're determining materials for next year's implementation of Reading Mastery Signature Edition. But before we get started, I just want to say thank you from myself and from all of my colleagues at McGraw-Hill Education, and Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. To the world, you may just be a teacher, but to your students, you are a star. So I hope you are enjoying this special week that's dedicated just to you. Let's look at how we are going to conduct testing. We're going to take a look at students who may need testing, but I want to remind you that the initial placement tests that we conduct for students are really only for students that are initially placed into the program or brand new to the program. That placement test should not be used at the end of every school year for every student. We should be relying on the data that you are collecting throughout your teaching, your mastery test data, your fluency test data, your curriculum-based assessment to drive on what you're going to do next for your students, to move them through the program. So when you're thinking about students who need testing, there are going to be special circumstances, which we'll talk about. And then we also want to think about who will give this testing for those students, and a date that you would like to test them that needs to be pretty quick before the end of the school year, and then making sure those test results are recorded. These students definitely need testing. So think about any incoming kindergarten student. All those students are brand new to reading mastery. They will all need to be placement tests in the program. So you want to make sure that you have a schedule or a process set up for your incoming kindergarten students. If you have any new students to your school that may have started near the end of the year or starting next school year, those new students to Reading Mastery should also be tested so they can be properly placed into a level and a lesson. You may have some students in Reading Mastery Signature 2, 3, or 4 that are close to the end of the program level. Like, for instance, let's just pick a third grade class who is completely at mastery in every step of the way, and they finished around lesson 100. They are stellar, and this teacher thinks, you know what, this class is actually ready to move on to Reading Mastery 4. This would be a special circumstance because they finished 2/3 of the program. There's only 40 more lessons left. Those students may be a candidate to test and place test them into the next level. Those are special circumstances, and really your data should drive that information, and you'll make the best professional decision for those students. And any students who are below mastery after you've built out your information on the students, those students will also need further testing. Incoming kindergarten students, we get this question often. Well, what should I do with them, and when should I give them the placement test? All incoming kindergarten students should be placement tested into the program. If you have a pre-registration process in your school or district, the placement test could be part of this process, where the students could be place tested as soon as they are registering for school. That's one way to get all of your incoming kindergarten students. Or you can wait to the very first week of school and designate a couple days in that first week of school to get all of your kindergarten students tested. The goal is that it should go pretty quick because they're incoming kindergarten students. That placement test will not be a lengthy placement test process. And in some schools and districts, there's pre-K on campus. If that's the case for your school and some of those pre-K students will continue on into kindergarten, you can actually test those pre-K students at the end of the school year. So those are some suggestions on how to get all of your incoming kindergarten students tested into Reading Mastery Signature Edition. In the first part of the series, we really took a look at the data. And here is Mary. We looked at Mary the last webinar, and we found out Mary was below mastery. Through her fluency, through her curriculum-based assessments, and through her mastery tests, it showed us that she was not performing at mastery. Mary would be a candidate for testing, further testing. These are special circumstances that you want to really look at the data to make sure that that would be appropriate, and Mary would be an appropriate candidate for further testing. We know that we are going to only test certain students under special circumstances, but there are some students that you will not test. You will not test any student who has not completed levels K and level 1 in reading mastery. Just a reminder, those levels need to be completed through the end to 160. So if they have not completed level K, they'll just continue on in the lessons next school year. Same thing for level 1. If they are mid-level in a program, they're in reading mastery 3 and they're only at lesson 50. They're going to continue on in reading mastery 3. We are not going to go ahead and place test them or do further testing on those students. And any students already at mastery, remember, they've already taken the placement test. The data that you are collecting on a daily basis informs you they're doing fine and they're moving on in the program lesson by lesson, and they move on their own trajectory. So these are students you will not test at the end of the school year. When you're thinking about testing, who should conduct the testing? Pick staff members or people in your building that have been trained in the placement test process so they know how to appropriately place test the students, you know, the time length, what to do, how to count the errors. If they're trained in the placement test process, they'll be good candidates to conduct the testing. You should start your testing as soon as possible. Remember, we talked a little bit about that as of date that you were turning into your coach or whoever was going to look at your data. That as of date should be considered because you want to do further testing as soon as possible before school ends. One of the reasons is that if you have this testing done, it'll help you inform how to form your groups as well as ordering. So get testing done as soon as possible. We're going to spend a lot of most of our time this afternoon on step 4, which will be complete projection sheet, and we're going to cover a lot of information. So at any time during this process, you have a question, don't forget you can type them in at the chat box, and we will get to them at the end of the webinar, and if we don't, we'll make sure we'll reach out to you after. But step 4 is completing the projection sheet. The goal of this is to take all of the information from the individual group sheets and put them on one master copy and then sort them so that way you can form groups and determine how many groups you're going to have for the next school year. This is an example of a projection sheet that you can use, and we'll make sure that you receive all of the documents that we're talking about today. We'll make sure that you have copies of those so that way you can use them when you are doing your end of the year process. So you have a projection sheet that looks like this. We're going to do one together. And before this process, it was empty. You filled it with student information. So the very top example is Sammy. He is at Mastery. I filled in everything in the projection sheet. My coach looked at it, verified the data, and placed Sammy at Reading Mastery Signature 3, Lesson 1, and assigned him a new teacher for next year. We also have on this sheet an example of a student that needed further testing. This is Mary again that we just talked about. Mary is not at Mastery. She finished Reading Mastery Signature 2 at Lesson 45, below Mastery. We will conduct further testing for Mary before we put a placement on there and assign her a new teacher next year. Let's take a look as if we have all the data from our school. It's all in one sheet, and we're going to take a look at one grade level. And we're going to start with grade level 4. So here's an example of grade level 4. We have multiple teachers' information on this sheet. We have their current direct instruction program. We have their expected lesson, where they performed, and the coach or whoever has looked at the data and verified it has placed the students into a program for next year. Notice in Miller's class, they were decoding A students. They finished at the end of decoding A. They were at mastery. They automatically started decoding B1, lesson 1. Same thing with Johnson. We notice that they are at decoding B1. They're at mastery. This class also started in decoding A earlier this year, so they've done 2 levels. They're at mastery. They're going to start decoding B2, level 1. Down here, though, I see when I'm scrolling down, I'm looking at the projection sheet, I see there's a new student to school. This student right here. They were not in a program last year. They were tested, and they are now going to be in decoding B2, lesson 1. So that would be an example of a student that you should test, someone new to the school. You also have at the very bottom, we have 2 teachers, Harrington and Smith, who are at Reading Mastery 3. Now they're only at lesson 52. They were in Reading Mastery 2 earlier in the year. They finished 2, moved on to 3. They only got to lesson 52. Just a reminder, that is a really appropriate stopping point. So I've highlighted on this story ending points document that 52 in Reading Mastery 3 is an appropriate stopping point. It's at the end of a story, end of some skill instruction, so they're good to go. But they have a lot of lessons still left. This class would not need any further testing. We're just going to start them where they left it off next year, and we're going to start them at lesson 53. You can sort this so that way you can really take a look, and I think mine's already sorted, but let me show you how to sort. So we're going to talk about what to do with that information. If you've never sorted before in an Excel spreadsheet, it's pretty easy. Go to your sort and filter, and you'll do a custom sort. And you'll notice that there's a drop-down menu. You can sort by everything that's on this sheet. We're going to sort by placement. And now we can see all of the B1 students, all of the B2 students, and then all of my Reading Mastery Signature 3 students. I always suggest to teachers, go ahead and assign a teacher to these groups. You may not know exactly who the teacher is, but you can say teacher A, B, C, and so on. So we only have a small group of decoding B1, so let's go ahead and assign them to teacher A. So we'll assign all of those to teacher A. This will also help me when I'm going to order. So I can see, oh, I have one teacher teaching teacher A. I only need one set of materials. But I do notice that this B2 group is a little bit large, so I'm going to actually assign 2 teachers and form 2 groups. So I'm going to name the first half teacher B. And then I'm going to give the last half of the group another teacher, and that's going to be teacher C. This lets me know that when I go to order, I have 2 groups doing decoding B2, so I definitely need 2 sets of teacher materials. So this sheet is not only great for figuring out how many groups you have, but also it informs what you'll need to order. If we take a look at Harrington and Smith, they both finished Reading Mastery at 3 at lesson 52. All of their students are at mastery, and they're all going to begin at lesson 53. Because I know of some staff things that are happening in the school, I'm going to actually combine these 2 groups into one teacher. So instead of having 2 groups of Reading Mastery 3, I'm only going to have 1, and I'm going to assign them teacher D. So this lets me know that when I go to order that I only have 1 group, I only need 1 set of materials. That's one way to use this form to sort to get groups for next year. Let me share with you another grade level. Let's look at lower grades 1 and 2. Remember, if any questions at any time, just go ahead and type it in that chat box and we'll get to at the end of the webinar, or we'll email you to make sure we get your questions answered. This is also teachers at the same school, but you'll notice this is grades 1 and grades 2. We have several teachers here. We have several lessons going on. So let's take a look at what's happening in grades 1 and 2 at this school. I noticed that Vines has a new student to the school, gave the placement test, and that student's going to be in Reading Mastery Signature 2, lesson 1. I also noticed that her students, because it's level 1, they finished at 125, and I know that they have to complete all of the lessons in level 1, we're not going to move them to Reading Mastery 2. We're actually going to go ahead and start them a little bit back, 5 lessons, 120. Summer, want to make sure we get a good review in there, so we make sure of that. We'll see that they are already going to be ready for the program. So they're going to start at lesson 120. But as I'm scrolling down at the data, I do notice there's one student in Vine's class that is below mastery. And so I want to make sure that that student, you'll notice, is going to be at lesson 50. So they're going to be a little bit in a different place than the rest of her students. And that's because that student was not at mastery. Special circumstance, we did some further testing on that student. We're looking at Ruth's class. They finished at lesson 60. Because we know a little bit more about this class, we've decided to back them up 10 lessons. They'll begin at lesson 50. And if I go down to Guyler, and you'll see that Guyler is on grade level. She's a first grade teacher. Students are in first Reading Mastery Level 1. They're at Mastery. They're starting at Reading Mastery Level 2 next year. And Ellis, same thing. Second grade teacher, her students are at Reading Mastery 2. They're going to start at Reading Mastery Signature 3. So that's a great way to sort of quickly see. And because these are all close together, color coding makes it very easy to see quickly. But now let's do a sort on this one as well. So remember to sort. We're going to go to sort and filter. We'll do a custom sort. And we're going to go ahead and sort by placement. When I sort by placement, it puts all of my Reading Mastery 1, Lesson 1 students right at together, all of my Reading Mastery 1, Lesson 120 students together, and then all of my students right at 150 altogether, including that student that was below mastery, that was in Vine's class. We see my new student there as well. So they're all together. Now, what you're going to do, the last column, which we didn't look at the last sheet, let's take a look at this time. The last column is going to be their grade for next year. So their grade is next year. Notice that in the notes, we have one student that's retained. So we want to make sure that their grade level was changed, and I changed their grade level because technically they're in second grade right now. They would automatically go to third grade. So I want to make sure that I manually change that to grade 2 to make sure that it reflects that that student's going to be retained. So this sheet can give you a lot of information about the students, gives you information about how many groups, how many teachers may form that group as well. So the goal really is to make sure that you have accurate information on all of the columns so that way you can sort and then figure out groups, which will eventually determine materials needed. So there any questions during that section, just go ahead. Don't forget to type it in the chat box. So now we're going to take a look at, well, how does this help me with ordering? What do I do now that I have this information? You're going to now start thinking about the ordering process. Step 5, which is the last step, determining materials. The goal is to make sure you order enough materials for a full school year. So we're going to talk a little bit about what materials are needed. So you have to take an inventory of what you already have and then know what you need. And you also want to keep in mind that you may have students that are starting mid in a program like the Reading Mastery Signature Group who's starting at lesson 53. I know they're going to finish 3 and move on to 4, so I have to order 4 materials as well. So think full year, not just what you need in September or August, and then how to keep complete the order forms. Keep budgets in mind, keep your district timeline in mind for ordering materials, so that way you can get those materials by the beginning of the school year. You're going to get a document that looks like this. This is an order form, and we're going to go through and do a quick order to show you how to use the order form. Remember, the projection sheet that you have will determine how many materials. And we're going to take a look at the Reading Mastery Signature 3 class. We'll use them as an example. Okay. Give me 1 second. Thank you for... So here is an order form that I just shared with you. And remember, you'll get copies of this document. There's 3 columns. The first column is what you need. The second one is what you already have on your in your buildings or districts. And then the third is what you'll need to order. So I just filled one out for you just so you can see how it sort of the sheet functions. So in this example, I need 1 teacher material for decoding A. I already have 2 on my campus. So if it's a negative number, that means I don't need to order any. So that's pretty important. What's also important is to know what materials come with what level. So you'll also receive this document that shares with you the different lessons that are covered in certain textbooks. So we're going to take a look at our 3rd grade class. Remember, they finished at lesson 52. They're going to start lesson 53. So what I know already is that they already have textbook A because they've been working on that this school year. They already have workbook A, but they'll need workbook B and textbook B. But they'll also need level 4 materials because they're going to probably finish 3 as well. So they'll need textbook A, and they also need their workbook. So this sheet is a good reference to come to when you're thinking about ordering, especially for the classes and groups that are in mid-program. It'll let you know which books that they still need to have for next school year. So let's take a look at an example. I did some for you, so I'll explain what I did, and then we'll do a little bit together. So here is Grade 3 already filled out. Just a reminder, this is the class that we're working with. So we took Harrington and Smith and combined them into 1 teacher. There are 23 students that are going to be using Reading Mastery 3 at lesson 53. So those 23, I know I need 23 student materials and only 1 teacher materials. That's really what I need for that group. Here tells me that I need 1, but my campus already has 3, so that's why you'll see a -2 there. We've already been working in textbook A. We have 40 on our campus, so I know I don't need to order anything. We need textbook B, 23 of them. We have 40 on our campus. I don't need to order anything. Same with the literature anthology. They've already been working in it, but we've been using it, so I don't need them. Workbook A, say we don't need any. We have 40, don't need to order. Workbook B, I need 10 of them. We have 40, so still good to go. But I noticed that I still needed 6 curriculum assessment student books. We only have 3 in our buildings, so I know I needed to order 3. So that's just 1 piece. But remember, that's just level 3. Let's scroll down to level 4 because we know they're going to begin level 4 as well. So for teacher materials, because I took 2 groups and made them into 1, I need 1 teacher set of materials. We don't have any on our campus. Oops. So we need 1 there. Okay. Textbook A, we know that we need 23. We don't have any on our campus, and you'll see it automatically went to 23 to order. I might as well order textbook B just so I have, so textbook B, we need 23. We don't have any automatically. We need 23 for the literature anthology. We don't have any, so we'll order 23. Same with the workbook. And we don't need any. And for whatever reason, we need 23, but we had 10. For whatever reason in our campus, I only need to order 13. So it's just that quick to quickly order materials. Remember, we just did for 1 group. You're going to put all groups into this sheet. So you can fill out all of your kindergarten materials, your 1st grade, all the way through 5th grade materials just on this 1 ordering sheet. So that's the goal, is to make sure that you take that projection sheet, form your groups, and let that form you on what materials that are needed and are necessary. We're going to stop here to see if we have any questions, to see if there are any questions on what we've covered so far, whether it's questions on which students need testing, the projection sheet itself, and how to order materials.
Hey, Kia, it's Mary.
Any questions?
Great. So I think Mary is tracking questions. Mary, do you have any?
Yeah, one of the questions had to do with middle school. Would you be able to use that form that you were showing them to have 5th or 6th graders that are transferring to a middle school?
Yes, you can use that form to share with the middle school where the students are, where they should go for next year, and what materials you can need. Absolutely, you can share that. That actually would be a great communicating between both elementary and middle school to share that information. Because sometimes what happens is a fifth grader moves to middle school and they repeat a program because information didn't follow. So you could really prevent that from happening by sharing the information that you have on the student with their new middle school. Absolutely, that would be fantastic.
Okay. And question about, would you normally be putting, would you end up, I guess the question was, would you end up merging all the students onto that sheet so that you could see all of the groups?
Yes, and I know we went through that a little bit quickly, but you can merge, you can put all of the individual sheets that you receive if you're the coach or if you're managing the implementation, and you can put your entire school information on that one sheet. One thing to just remember is that when you're working with that sheet, make sure that you are using the same initials and acronyms when you're doing the program, so that way it sorts properly. But yes, you can put all of your groups onto that one sheet, so it makes it easier for you to use when you're ordering materials.
Okay. I think that's all the questions we had on here tonight.
Oh, thank you, Mary. Well, I just wanted to say that it's been a fantastic time being able to have these webinars every month throughout the school year. We do have some up-and-coming professional development opportunities, one of them being in Orlando, Florida, in June 22nd and June 23rd. You can register at mheonline.com/DI2015. There's going to be some great sessions, some amazing presenters. You'll have a great time, but you'll also get a chance to learn a lot as well. So if you have the opportunity to join us, please do. We would love for you to register, and I think there's an incentive to register before the end of May. So Lindsay can speak to that. And also, just like today, all of the webinars we've done throughout the year have been recorded, and you can find these virtual training opportunities on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/user/school education group, and you'll find a direct instruction playlist, and you can go back and listen to the webinars we've done this year, share with colleagues or share with friends. We are so excited that we had the opportunity to do this. And on a personal note, I want to thank everybody for attending throughout the year. I know sometimes it's hard after school, so I appreciate your dedication to all the students and your dedication to direct instruction. I think Lindsay just has a few things that she might want to add to close.
Yeah, thanks, Kia. So essentially, we really want to thank you for attending today. And like Kia mentioned, we've been doing this all year. Many of you have shown up multiple times and viewed recordings as well. We hope that you found these sessions helpful, and we look forward to seeing you in August as you wrap up your school year for this year. You will receive a survey. We hope that you will fill out that survey and let us know what other topics are of interest. And also, we'll include all the documents that Kia mentioned, both from this session and the previous session, so that you have a link to the recording as well. If we missed any webinars, again, YouTube, a playlist for direct instruction. You can view them there. And otherwise, we wish you all a great summer, and see you in August. Thanks for your time.